This podcast is brought to you by Free Buddhist Audio, the Dharma for your life. Our work is funded entirely by donations from our generous listeners. If you would like to help us keep this free, make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. Thank you, and happy listening.
So last week we celebrated Buddha Day. We celebrated the Buddha attaining enlightenment, attaining awakening, around about 2,500 years ago in northern India. And the stories say he attained enlightenment sitting under a tree, under what's now become known as a Bodhi tree, in a very beautiful spot by the river Naranjana. He found this beautiful place to meditate, to seek enlightenment. And it'd been a long journey for him getting to that point. Actually many struggles and troubles along the way. His mother actually died giving birth to him, so he grew up as an orphan. In other ways he had quite a privileged upbringing. He was the son of a kind of clan leader and was being brought up to follow in his father's footsteps and to be a warrior and a kind of tribal leader. So definitely being sort of kind of funneled and channeled in a certain direction. And I think he found that very kind of limiting. He yearned for freedom. There's also a story about a conflict that happened when he was growing up, actually between the tribe of his father and the tribe that his mother had come from. And it was a conflict over the rights to water in a certain river, maybe in a time of drought or something like that. And it almost led to warfare. And this young man, the young Siddhartha, who would become the Buddha, there's a place, in the scriptures where he talks about this, and he talks about how horrified he was, how disturbed he was, seeing the possibility of conflict, seeing the possibility that his family members could actually take swords and fight and kill just for water, So there were certain things that happened in his life which troubled him, and even though in other ways it was a privileged upbringing, it still felt like a prison, it still felt limiting. And so, he just walked away from it. As a young man, he just left. He just walked away from it. He walked into the forest to try and seek something else, some kind of enlightenment, some kind of escape, some kind of awakening. And that also led to various struggles, sort of spiritual struggles. He had various teachers. They taught him what they knew, but he was never satisfied. He never felt the teachings really completely made sense or really explained what life was about. He tried ascetic practices, sort of starved himself almost to death, realised that was useless, that wasn't the way to enlightenment. When he did that, his friends abandoned him. So he was left alone, maybe quite lonely, maybe starting to think, have I just made a fool of myself leaving home? Am I just going to fail? But something seemed to keep him going. All along, he seemed convinced that there was a way. There seemed to be some strong intuition, some strong sense that there was something there to be discovered, to be realised. And that kind of kept him going. And then, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but he had a memory came from his childhood. And this memory was very, very significant and gave him a kind of clue for what he needed to do next, for how he needed to meditate, the sort of approach that he needed to take in meditation. And he found this spot under the tree by the river and, meditated. We don't really know how long he was there. In some of the kind of more mythical accounts, the whole thing gets sort of dramatically compressed into one single night. And there's this story of, just in different phases of the night, different waves of enlightenment occurring. And then as the morning star arose, he realises he's fully awake. Maybe maybe it was like that right at the end, but maybe there were some weeks, months, who knows, that led up to that experience. And maybe there were some weeks and months after that experience where sort of further waves of realisation, further waves of the implication of what he discovered just sort of came flooding through him, yeah? And a process of sort of not just knowing, but knowing what he now knows, a process of assimilation and absorbing this extraordinary breakthrough into another kind of consciousness, into a complete sort of existential freedom, yeah? Life opening up in a completely new, beautiful, free kind of way, yeah? So, yeah, that's the Buddha's awakening. And there's a couple of stories about what happens next. So he eventually, after many different incidents, he decides he's going to leave that place and he's going to go back into the world of humans and try and share this awakening with others, try and teach others the way to discover this for themselves. Yeah. So he's made this decision and he's on his way to go back, to the human world. Yeah. And in one tradition, there's a little story that he walks away from the tree, and I don't know whether he stands or he sits, but he gazes. It says he gazes unblinking at the tree with loving eyes. Yeah, he just gazes, this sort of loving gaze, unblinking at the tree. Yeah, the tree which has sheltered him from the rain, maybe sheltered him from the hot sun. He just gazes with love at the tree. Yeah? And there's another little tradition where, as he's actually leaving, before he goes, he turns, he places his hands together to his heart, and he bows to the tree. Yeah? There's this deep bow of gratitude and respect to the tree, which has, again, sheltered him, looked after him in a way being a kind of companion at this incredibly, incredibly significant time of his life. Yeah? He bows in gratitude to the tree for shading him, protecting him, looking after him in that kind of way. Yeah? And then he turns away and he walks back into the human world and, into the next phase of his life. So there's a Sangharakshita talk about the Buddha where he tells another little story from that time, and it's a story where the Buddha, he's just enlightened, he's just sort of working through the implications of the enlightenment, and he decides that he wants something to revere. Even though he's the Buddha, even though he's enlightened, he still wants something to look up to revere. That's just sort of natural. That kind of natural need and want to look up. And so he decides to revere the Dharma, to revere reality in a way that's made awakening possible. Yeah. So in this talk, Sangharakshita says, we're used to thinking of the wise Buddha, we're used to talking about the compassionate Buddha, or maybe the aware Buddha, or the fearless Buddha. And in this talk he says, I'm getting us now to think about the worshipping Buddha. That even the Buddha wanted to worship, to look up, to revere. Yeah? So he was adding the worshipping Buddha. And in a way, in this talk, I'm adding the grateful Buddha. Yeah? The Buddha was wise, compassionate, fearless. He also naturally felt gratitude. There's a number of stories where you see his gratitude. So when he goes back into the human world, when he goes to share this teaching with others, the first people that he thinks of is his two teachers, Alara the Kalama and Udaka Ramaputra. They were his two main teachers. And he knew they weren't enlightened, and he knew they couldn't teach him everything he needed to know, and so he'd moved on from them some years before. But nevertheless, he knew they were good men, and they'd helped him, and they taught him a lot. And so, they were the first people that he thought of to go and teach. There was a sort of natural response of gratitude. There's also the story of Ananda, his cousin, who looked after him for many, many years, about 25 years apparently. When the Buddha is dying, Ananda is utterly grief-struck, and the Buddha rejoices in him, just expresses so much gratitude in Ananda to the other monks. It really rejoices and expresses gratitude and appreciation as a way of, just kindly looking after Ananda and comforting him. And then even the tree under which he gained enlightenment, there's just this natural response of gratitude. Yeah, that's what an enlightened being feels. They feel gratitude. They feel appreciation. They feel naturally, spontaneously, feel a sense of being in receipt of so much. Yeah, being in dependence and connection with so much. Yeah, he naturally. He doesn't experience himself as being separate, but quite naturally feels or realises or knows he's deeply connected, deeply dependent, deeply interdependent on so many other things around him. And just really feels that sense of reciprocity and gratitude and appreciation. So we human beings, we've got a particular human self-consciousness. Yeah? We don't just have sense consciousness. We've got this ability to be aware of being aware. We've got this ability sometimes, we're not doing it all the time by any means, but we're able sometimes to sort of step back from our experience and know what we're experiencing. Yeah? We're not always completely in the experience, but we can sort of step back and know what we're experiencing. We can sort of dialogue with ourselves about what's going on. We can reflect on our experience. Yeah, so this is quite distinctive kind of self-awareness, kind of consciousness. Yeah, and that opens up a very particular human sense of agency. Yeah. Humans can observe and reflect. Humans can think and predict and plan in quite a unique, particular kind of way. Yeah, and as we know, from this human agency, a whole particular human world has evolved. Whole civilizations come and go through history, including today's Western, now global civilization with its science, its technology, its philosophies, its religions, its different cultures, and so on. Yeah, and also from this human self-awareness and sense of agency, also comes the possibility of awakening. Yeah, humans have this ability to kind of work out cause and effect in the world around them, and they can also sort of reflect and conceptualize about cause and effect within. Yeah, we can see how the mind works. We can start to see how certain mental attitudes, ways of thinking lead to happiness and expansiveness and connection, and we can see how certain mental states and ways of thinking and acting lead to a more constricted, unhappy kind of way of being and experiencing life. We can start to sort of see the connection between a whole state of mind and a whole sort of construction and experience of the world out there. Yeah. So this ability to reflect, this human self-awareness, self-agency, means that we can come to understand the nature of mind, the nature of existence, and we can become free. We can become more and more free. We can make wiser and wiser choices about what we want to unfold for us. So I just want to explore this human agency a little bit further, and I want to unpack a bit sort of two modes of how it can work. Yeah. So I'm saying that this self-awareness, this agency, can open up different kinds of possibility. Yeah, there's definitely possibilities that it opens up, which can be positive and can be even liberating. It can also become a trap. Yeah, this self-awareness can also become a kind of distinctively human trap. Yeah. So I want to explore sort of two modes in which it can work. Yeah. So the first is what I'm calling the entitlement mode. The entitlement mode, and I'm going to contrast that with the gratitude mode. Yeah. So the entitlement mode is where, we exercise that human agency, and it sort of comes out of and reinforces a sense of, I did this, yeah. This was me, yeah. And because it was me, I've earned it. It's mine, yeah. There's a kind of mindset. That's the mindset that I'm calling the entitlement mode, yeah? A sense of entitlement, a sense of attainment, a sense of me doing something and attaining something, and therefore it's sort of mine, as it were, yeah? And there may be some truth in this mode, maybe I did act in a particular way, maybe I did exercise agency, maybe even I worked quite hard, maybe with a lot of skill, and intelligence, maybe even with very good intentions. Yeah. So there's some sort of truth in it, but it wasn't just me. Yeah. It wasn't just me. Yeah. There must have been all sorts of other conditions and supports which allowed whatever happened to happen. Yeah. So, in a way, what I'm saying is, in this mode, we sort of narrow down into a little perspective where we think it was me that did this. And we don't really see that actually it was me plus a whole load of other causes and conditions and supports, as it were. Yeah, we miss out how dependent, how connected, how indebted to other we really are. Yeah. So for example, here you are this morning, you did get to the Buddhist Centre. Maybe you were lying in bed and thought, I could just have a lie-in this morning. But no, I'm going to get up and go to the Buddhist Centre. You did exercise agency. And yet so many other things allowed you to get here. The fact that there were roads and streets to travel along. Maybe you got the bus. You just think about it. There are all sorts of other reasons that meant you could be here, that we could be here, that this could happen this morning. Yeah. But it's so easy to sort of forget that. It's so easy to sort of narrow down and close down into a smaller view with me at the centre, and it just sort of leaves out so much. In a way, I think all the time, quite habitually, we're leaving out so much, yeah? And in a way it's sort of natural and understandable, because I am at the centre in my experience. That is how I experience things. And in a way it's me and my experience and my agency and my thoughts which I do experience most immediately and most vividly, as it were. So you can sort of see that there's a kind of understandable reason why we might kind of shrink down into this limited view, and not notice our dependence on a much larger web of conditions. So I want to read a poem that explains what happens when we get stuck in this mode. So it's a poem called The Moment, and it's by Margaret Atwood. Quite well-known novelist. Yeah, she's also a poet, written quite a lot of poems. So the moment. The moment when, after many years of hard work and a long voyage, you stand in the centre of your room, house, half acre, square mile, island, country, knowing at last how you got there, and say, I own this, is the same moment when the trees unloose their soft arms from around you. The birds take back their language. The cliffs fissure and collapse. The air moves back from you like a wave, and you can't breathe. No, they whisper. You own nothing. You were a visitor, time after time, climbing the hill, planting the flag, proclaiming. We never belonged to you. You never found us. It was always the other way round. So yeah, in that mode, in that entitlement mode, the world recedes, the world separates. Yeah? The trees unloose their soft arms from around you. Yeah? The world becomes more flat and blank. Yeah? The birds take back their language. You stop hearing the song of the birds. You stop being able to really fully appreciate the beauty. Yeah? The world becomes more small and claustrophobic. Yeah? The air moves back from you like a wave and you can't breathe. Yeah? So yes, this entitlement mode, it creates this sort of sense of me and a sense of separation, which is a sense of alienation and lack. Yeah? And that then, that leads to more sort of grasping, more kind of defending. And yeah, a really, really sort of impoverished experience of life and experience of the world. Yeah? The grasping mind can't feel grateful. Yeah? It's a contradiction in terms. The grasping mind, when we're in a mode of grasping or aversion, we can't feel grateful. We can't sort of realise or feel or know our connection, our dependence, our indebtedness to others. We're sort of really sort of cut off from so much in life. Yeah. So that's the gratitude, that's the entitlement mode, and then I want to contrast that with the gratitude mode. Yeah. So this is the mode, the way of being, where we don't put ourselves at the centre and blank everything else out in the way that we do in the entitlement mode. Yeah? So we're in touch with a bigger, more complete picture, where we still sense our own sense of agency and effect, but we also sense and know so much more. Yeah? We're in a different way of looking at life, just a whole different sort of view, a whole different perspective, a whole different way of looking and seeing, which gives rise to a whole different way of being, a whole different way of existing in the world and experiencing the world around us. Yeah? So this sense of interdependence, this sense of, you could even say indebtedness, but I don't mean that in a kind of bargaining, negotiating, just a kind of free sense of indebtedness, a sense of there's so much that we rely on, there's so much that's being given to us. So in a way, a sense of richness, a sense of abundance, a sense of, life is giving me so much. Yeah. So it's a little bit paradoxical, isn't it? You feel dependent, but that makes you feel richer. Yeah. There's a sense of dependence, and so in a way there's a sense of humility. You know it's all not you. It's not all me. Yeah, you sort of know that. Yeah, there's this sort of built-in humility, and yet again, sort of a bit paradoxically, that allows you to feel less alienated and more expansive, more connected, more part of things. Yeah, there's a bigger sense of what it means to be. Yeah, that comes with this sort of sense of humility. So yeah, in this mode, in the gratitude mode, the world becomes more abundant, more beautiful, more open, more expansive. We belong. We're part of things. We're connected rather than alienated. Yeah? And because of all that, because of this sense of love and connection and generosity, maybe more easily there's a natural, spontaneous wish to give back. to love back, to give back. Life is a gift, and we just want to return that gift. We want to pass it on to others. Our energy is more able to flow in that way. Not because we ought to, not because we sort of need to keep some kind of bargain, to pay our dues, but because we've gone beyond all that. We've gone beyond those sorts of games, those sorts of negotiations, that sort of mindset of life as a kind of bargain. We're even starting to dissolve the whole sense of separation of self and other. So that's where gratitude takes us. It's taking us into a deep sense of interdependence. That where that sense of separate self and other doesn't make any sense anymore. We realise it's not really like that at all. So this is the entitlement mode and the gratitude mode. And some of you might have spotted this, but in a way it's perhaps another way of expressing what Sangharakshita calls the power mode and the love mode. So I'm not going to repeat that now, but it's in it's in his book, The 10 Pillars of Buddhism, where he talks about the power mode and the love mode as these two kind of fundamental, basic attitudes to life. And I suppose I'm sort of talking about those in terms of gratitude as the entitlement mode and the gratitude mode. And Viryadeva was just talking about the state of the world. I suppose these modes are at work in the world, and I think what I'd argue is, they've always been around. They've always been around, and they're always there. Wherever there's human life and human culture, human society. But I think I would argue that in my lifetime, I've seen the entitlement mode in various ways, in various guises and forms, get stronger. Economically, I think we're more in a society which is much more run on the entitlement mode these days. Politically, in various ways, both right and left actually, the entitlement mode is the kind of mindset, the kind of model in which people think later. Politically and socially. It's just become more the sort of assumed, woven in worldview on which things operate. And I'd also argue that's because, in the cultures where that's happening, they're sort of losing their spiritual roots. They're losing the sort of basis of the gratitude mode. Something is being lost and undermined, and so more and more society is sort of reverting to this entitlement mode. And so it's a kind of mindset that becomes a whole kind of value system that then becomes, in a way, institutionalised. It becomes a kind of force in the world in various ways. So I just wanted to say that. I don't really want to go there that much. It's not really what the talk is about, but I just wanted to sort of acknowledge that it's a sort of force in the world that has an effect on us. Maybe without us sometimes realising it, but it becomes a kind of force in the world. And I've presented these two modes in a way quite extreme ways. It's quite black and white, isn't it? And maybe it's better to think of it as a kind of spectrum, and they're the two sort of poles of the spectrum: entitlement mode, gratitude mode. And the way I described it, you might be thinking, well, I'm not in the entitlement mode. I don't think like that. And, well, I've got two things to say about that, Maybe not in that extreme form, in that sort of pure, undiluted, slightly extreme way I expressed it. But I think there are still sort of subtle ways in which we relate to life as a kind of bargain. In fact, in ways where we are conditioned to sort of think of life like that in this quite individualistic society that we're living in. Ways in which we're conditioned to think that life owes us. So maybe there are more subtle ways in which this does sort of flavour our approach to life. And then the second thing I wanted to argue is, even if we don't think we live right down that end of the spectrum, I think we could all live much further down this end of the spectrum. There's so much more possibility for living in the gratitude mode. Yeah, there's so much more. And I guess in this talk and in this series, we're exploring the path to enlightenment, the Buddhist path, as a sort of total transformation into gratitude, as a kind of a gradual and total transformation into this mode of gratitude and love. There's so much more potential for that, and life could then open up in so much more of a beautiful, expansive, liberating kind of way. Yeah? So this mode of entitlement, or you could say attainment, may be working in more subtle ways. And it may also be at work in our Dharma lives, in our spiritual lives. Yeah? Again, maybe it's a sort of view that kind of creeps in to how we approach our Dharma life, our spiritual life. Yeah. So I recently read this book called A Promise of a Sacred World by Naga Priya. This was my deep exploration of Pure Land that Vajragupta mentioned. So Naga Priya is an order member, English order member, but lives these days in Mexico. And he's written this book about Shinran, who's a Buddhist teacher who lived in Japan about 800 years ago. So very, very different time, very, very different culture to us. And as Buddhism has come to the West, various forms of Buddhism have, sort of come over in a way relatively easily and relatively commonly. So we've got Theravadan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism's been quite popular, Tibetan Buddhism. There's certain other forms of Buddhism which are sort of currently still less well known. And probably Pure Land Buddhism is one of those forms. And the teaching of Shinran, he's probably a lesser known Buddhist teacher in the West. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting that Naga Priya has written a book about him. And the book has received very high praise from people practicing in that Pure Land tradition, practicing in that Shinran tradition, which is very, very interesting. I'm partly mentioning that as a sort of little rejoicing in our order, that we're now, we've got order members now who are writing books that are becoming very well respected by people from other Buddhist traditions, by people practicing in those Buddhist traditions. They're almost saying he's written one of the best, maybe the best book on Shinran, on explaining Shinran to a Western audience. Yeah, so I recommend it. It's a very, very good book. Anyway, Shinran, 800 years ago in Japan, Buddhist teacher, had practiced diligently for many years, decades, but felt he wasn't getting anywhere. And one of the ways he sort of articulated how he felt stuck was that what he called the calculating mind kept getting in the way. Yeah. He would practice, he would meditate and all the rest of it, but his mind would start sort of getting into, sort of calculating. And this is a sort of classic problem, isn't it? It's the kind of classic problem is, how does the self go beyond the self? Yeah, how do I practice without my ego sort of appropriating anything that happens? Yeah, how do we avoid the danger that the ego just starts sort of using the spiritual life basically just to sort of polish itself and embellish itself and make it sort of feel more shiny? Yeah. You probably all know what it's like. You have a good meditation and it's great, and then there's just a little voice that starts feeling a little bit pleased with itself. Yeah? The ego kind of finds a way to get in. Yeah? And then you notice next time you sit down to meditate, there's a little expectation. Yeah? Oh, it's going to be good. Yeah? the calculating mind. Yeah? And then maybe it doesn't go well, perhaps partly because of the kind of load of that expectation. And then the calculating mind is disappointed. What's gone wrong? Why isn't it working? I'm meditating, I'm putting the effort in. Shouldn't I be getting the results? Yeah. So this is what Shinran referred to as the problem of the calculating mind. Yeah. This sense of somehow I'm trying to sort of earn something or attain something or get something. Yeah. And that just sort of getting in the way. Yeah. So the Buddhist tradition has got lots of different solutions for this, actually, of trying to get round this problem. But Shinran had a particularly novel, surprising, even sort of startling solution. He was, especially concerned with this problem of the calculating mind. Yeah. So his solution was to see awakening as a gift. It was a gift. It was something that was going to be given to you. Yeah? It wasn't something that you deserved through ethics, through being good. It wasn't something that you earned through doing hours and hours of meditation. It wasn't something that you attained through studying the Dharma, studying the texts, developing insights. Yeah, it wasn't any of that. Yeah, all that actually was useless. That just gets in the way. That's just ego stuff. Yeah, awakening is a gift. Yeah, and it's given by Amitabha Buddha. Yeah, so this. In the tradition in which Shinran was practicing, there was a myth of the Buddha Amitabha taking a vow aeons and aeons ago to become a Buddha, to establish a Pure Land, a place in which beings, if they wanted to, if they asked to, could be reborn, and from which they would attain enlightenment. So Shinran's idea, Shinran's myth was, well, Amitabha is now a Buddha, so he must have therefore created that Pure Land. So it must be possible that we can be reborn in it and be enlightened. Yeah. There's nothing I can do if I strive in the spiritual life. The ego just gets in the way. It's just the kind of grasping, calculating mind. It's all sort of useless. But more incredibly, more amazingly, there's also nothing I need to do. It's already there. It's just waiting. There's just a kind of gift that's going to be freely given to me. Yeah. So for Shinran, practice was just gratitude. Yeah. The reason for chanting and meditating was just to express gratitude. Yeah? Any work one did in the world was, again, just an expression of gratitude. Yeah? So in this way, he circumvented that calculating mind. He circumvented this tendency we have to want to get something. Yeah? It's already there. Yeah? If you just open up in gratitude, it's just waiting for you there. At any moment. It can be revealed at any moment. So this might seem strange to us, yeah? It's very different to the usual way we explain the Dharma, this idea of a path, idea of transforming ourselves through ethics and meditation and wisdom, this idea of transforming ourselves and therefore being able to, tread this path and eventually reach enlightenment. But there's very deep truth, I would say, in this myth, in this teaching of Shinran's. Yeah, we are only here because of the Buddha. Yeah, I'm only here because of the Buddha. Yeah, what the Buddha discovered, what the Buddha realised, I'd have never worked that out for myself. Not in a million years. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have had a clue. Honestly, I'm only here because of what the Buddha discovered, what the Buddha taught, what the Buddha passed on. I'd have never, ever, ever worked that out for myself. Yeah? Any understanding I've got, any kind of awareness I've got of higher things, of higher possibilities, I've learnt it from others. Yeah? It's been given to me. I've just sort of come across it as a kind of free gift and discovered it and been able to sort of benefit from it. We have this idea of transferring merits. So sometimes even at the end of the class we transfer our merits. We have this aspiration that any merit we've gained go to the benefit of all beings. Yeah? Well, we're not the only ones transferring merits. Yeah? The Buddha is transferring merits. Yeah? We're living in the field of merit of the Buddha. Yeah? Right here, right now, we're in the field of the merit of the Buddha. This place wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the merits of the Buddha, sort of flowing through history, streaming through the generations, streaming through history, through time, through space. It's happening right here, right now. Yeah? We're dependent on the practice, the insight, the understanding, the realisation of so many others, the work and the diligence of so many others. Yeah? All the Dharma texts that have come to us. Apparently once upon a time they were written on palm leaves, which very quickly degenerated. So they had to be written, and then before they faded, they'd have to be rewritten. Yeah. So, for some monks it was a full-time job, just writing out the texts again and again and again, so that they would be preserved, so that they could be passed through history. Yeah. Just imagine these people writing all day long. We don't even know their names. We don't know anything about them. But we have the texts because of them, because of their faith, their connection to the Dharma. Yeah? People translating the text, people taking going on dangerous journeys to take the teachings to new lands, and so on. Yeah? So we're living in the field of merit of the Buddha. Yeah, we're only here because of the Buddhas, as it were. Yeah. So I want to finish by suggesting 4 ways we can turn our lives into gratitude. 4 ways we can turn our life into a practice of gratitude. Yeah. So the first one is to keep a gratitude diary. Yeah. So the basic idea is that maybe at the end of the day, have a little notebook and pen, and maybe at the end of the day, just write down 6 things that you're grateful for that day. Yeah. And take that on as a practice to sort of think about and cultivate gratitude. I've got a friend, he's an order member these days, but before he was an order member, he was quite prone to depression. And he took this on as a practice. And he said it was one of the most transforming things he did. And really lifted him out of this sort of tendency to be depressed. Just this sense of reflecting on gratitude and, in a way, how much he was receiving. It really sort of got at a self-view that he had. Yeah. So just a chance to rejoice, to notice, to appreciate things, experiences, people, just how much we're in receipt of. Even when times are difficult, there's things we can be grateful for. There's things that we can notice to be grateful for. Yeah, and of course that will spur us into expressing more gratitude. Yeah, expressing gratitude to others is a real gift to them that's free to give. Yeah, just the power of noticing and appreciating and expressing gratitude. And the last few weeks, partly inspired by the book and partly inspired by getting ready to do this, I've been keeping a gratitude diary. And it's been really good. I've really enjoyed doing it. And I've sort of noticed that I've got so far with it and I want to take it deeper. It's like I've got to sort of limit, got to the sort of edge of my imagination. And I've realised I want to go a bit further. I want to sort of open out into even more deeper ways in which I live in dependence on others. Yeah? It's sort of shown me that limit. It's sort of shown me how I'm still within a certain kind of bubble of me, a bubble of self that thinks it's completely autonomous and separate in a certain kind of way, and self-controlled. Yeah? And it's getting me to sort of feel and somehow sense how I'm missing so much. Yeah? So it's been an interesting practice of, sort of making me realise, there's a kind of edge here. What would it be like to sort of expand that, to go a bit further beyond that? Yeah. So I've started thinking about a few things, a few ways to sort of go beyond. So the second one, that was the gratitude diary. So the second practice for turning our lives into gratitude is trying to reflect on the people that we don't notice. The people that we don't notice. Yeah? So I'm going to read a poem to explain what I mean by that. Some of you may have heard me read this. I've been reading this poem a little bit recently, so here it is again. It's called Filling Station, and it's by the American poet Elizabeth Bishop. Oh, but it is dirty, this little filling station. Oil-soaked, oil-permeated, to a disturbing overall black translucency. Be careful with that match. Father wears a dirty oil-soaked monkey suit that cuts him under the arms, and several quick and saucy and greasy sons assist him. It's a family filling station, all quite thoroughly dirty. Do they live in the station? It has a cement porch behind the pumps, and on it a set of crush and grease-impregnated wickerwork. On the wicker sofa, a dirty dog, quite comfy. Some comic books provide the only note of colour, of certain colour. They lie upon a big dim doily draping a tabaret, part of the set, beside a big hirsute begonia. Why the extraneous plant? Why the tabaret? Why, oh why, the doily? Embroidered in daisy stitch, with marguerites, I think, and heavy with grey crochet. Somebody embroidered the doily. Somebody waters the plant, or oils it maybe. Somebody arranges the rows of cans so they softly say eso, so, to high-strung automobiles. Somebody loves us all. So I really love this poem, and she walks into a dirty, grubby, greasy filling station, and normally in such a place you want to just fill up with petrol, pay, and get on with your journey, and especially because it's grubby and greasy, you don't want to hang around there. Yeah, you just go into that mode of head down, not noticing, just get what I want, and get on. Yeah. But she doesn't, the poet doesn't. She notices so much. Yeah. For me, this is a poem about noticing. Yeah. A poem about gradually being drawn out of yourself by observing and noticing. Yeah. So she notices the oil and the grease. But then she notices, the father is wearing a monkey suit that cuts him under the arms. She notices it's a bit too small for him, yeah. And then, of course, she notices the plant, the doily, the embroidery, and she notices, presumably the mother, who's out the back, doesn't even appear in the poem, but she's seen by the poet, yeah. The poet notices so much, yeah. So there's love in that noticing, isn't there? Yeah? To quote Simone Weil, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. To notice in that kind of way, there's a kind of love, a kind of generosity, a kind of appreciation and gratitude. Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to take this on as a practice. Who are the people that I don't notice? You know, maybe when I'm on a journey, when I'm walking to work, what can I notice? Yeah. Somebody cleaned the buses. Yeah. Somebody designed the poster in the advert slot in the bus stop. Somebody tidied the office when I arrive. Yeah. There's probably so many things that we could notice, opening our mind into a different kind of mindset. Yeah. Third area, so that's the people we don't notice, and then there's what I've called the wonder of ordinary things. So I'm going to read another little poem. This is just a short one. It's actually called The Patience of Ordinary Things by a poet called Pat Schneider. The Patience of Ordinary Things. It's a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea. How the chair stands sturdy and foursquare. How the floor receives the bottom of shoes or toes. How soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things. How clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish, and towels drink the wet from the back of the skin of the back. And the lovely repetition of stairs. And what is more generous than a window? Yeah. So this idea of just reflecting on the generosity of ordinary things, how ordinary things are sort of supporting us and making life possible for us all the time. Yeah. I've been thinking about my car recently. I've got a car which was given to me by my dad. So it's a little bit precious to me because of that. He got too old to drive, and in a very generous way he gave me his car. And it's 20 years old now, it's getting old, so it is getting to the stage where soon something will go wrong and it will get scrapped. But it's still going for now, and it's done 145,000 miles. And so sometimes I just reflect on how incredible that is. It's driven nearly 6 times round the planet. That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it amazing that we've got these contraptions and you just put this liquid in and somehow it goes along? Yeah. So later on today I'm going to drive to my mum's 200 miles away, and all being well it will carry me along at 65 miles an hour. You know, a journey that once upon a time, you know, not that long ago actually, would have been days of tiring, hard travel. Yeah. But we so easily forget these things, don't we? We notice when things don't go, when things aren't working, we notice and we get annoyed and frustrated. When things do work, we just totally take it for granted. Yeah. It's just, yeah. But there's so much more to sort of notice and appreciate. Ordinary things and natural things, yeah. So that, you know, this brings us back to the Buddha, noticing the tree, yeah. And my fourth area, just bringing things to a close. That was kind of gratitude for the ordinary things, and then gratitude for the extraordinary things. So in a way, gratitude for the Dharma, gratitude for the possibility of awareness and awakening. So in a way, seeing our practice as an expression of gratitude, seeing puja and chanting as gratitude, mantra as gratitude, meditation and ethics as a practice of gratitude. Yeah? How amazing that the mind can change. How amazing that I've come into contact with these teachings which allow me to be more free, to be more positive, to be more expansive. Yeah? Just seeing our practice as a prayer of gratitude. Yeah. So yeah, that's my talk basically. As you can maybe see, I'm really taken with gratitude right now, and I've just got this sense that gratitude could be the whole path to awakening. Gratitude, the practice of gratitude, could be a very, very strong, deep way to change our vision, to change our whole mindset, to change our whole relationship to life. Yeah? Of course, we all feel gratitude a lot of the time, but there's so much more. It could go so much deeper. Yeah? Gratitude is actually, it's an insight practice. It's a wisdom practice. Yeah? Gratitude is potentially the gateway to awakening. Yeah? So yeah, on this course, I'm hoping we can explore a deep, profound, radical, in the sense of to the roots, gratitude that can turn our calculating mind completely inside out. Yeah? And if we could do that, well, in a way, we really would be reborn in Amitabha's Pure Land. Yeah? We really would live in a different world, a world that would be so much more magical, so much more beautiful, so much more abundant. We'd be living in the world of awakening.
We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Please help us keep this free. Make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. And thank you